Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are glad you are here, and just by showing up, you're already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to present two of the most interesting music entrepreneurs you're ever going to meet. One I have stalked as a guest for quite some time. The other is running a very cool venture that solves a problem for people like me who collect memorabilia, including ticket stubs. I promise you will leave here smarter and more enlightened than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And also ask questions of our speakers. This is very important, folks. Please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the host and speakers. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep doing this for free. Special thanks to MedJet, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, and Better Than Booze. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome Matt Wolff. Matt is founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine, a company dedicated to creating commemorative tickets and keepsakes for fans and events. Born in New Jersey, he graduated from the University of Florida and has lived in South Florida ever since. He began his career in ticketing at Worldwide Ticketcraft before moving on to LexisNexis, where he earned the prestigious Circle of Excellence Award 3 years in a row. In 2020, Matt went all in on Ticket Time Machine, leaving the corporate world behind. He combines his entrepreneurial spirit with a lifelong love of sports, music, and travel, always seeking out memorable experiences around games, concerts, and great food. Outside of work, he spends way too much time, energy, and money on the Florida Gators and attends as many concerts as possible. Welcome, Matt. It is an honor to have you with us today.
Thanks, Tom.
And joining him as our featured guest today is one of my music industry heroes, Kevin Lyman. Kevin has shaped the youth culture for over 40 years with his award-winning expertise in the music and entertainment industry, as well as business and philanthropic ventures. He is best known as the creator of the Vans Warped Tour, which ran from 1995 to 2019, which can be considered one of the most socially influential music tours in the United States. In 2025, the tour returned with a series of shows in partnership with Insomniac Events. After the Vans Warped Tour, he began teaching as an associate professor of practice at the University of Southern California, focusing on the next generation of industry professional and teaching them that you can do good and do good business. He continues his work with his foundation called Unite the United and sits on multiple boards, including I Voted, Concerts, and Gritty in Pink. For his philanthropic efforts, he was recognized as the Billboard Touring Awards Humanitarian of the Year in 2009, an honoree at the Grammy Music Cares Gala Fund in 2011 and 14, was inducted into the Top Dog Touring Hall of Fame at the TourLink Conference in 2012, and received the T.J. Martell Foundation Humanitarian Award in 2016. He was also recognized with the Humanitarian Award at the Billboard Touring Awards in 2018 and the 2018 Fest Forum Man of the Year, and in 2019 was inducted into the IEBA Hall of Fame. It is my pleasure to welcome these two rock stars to our platform today. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Tom. This is fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad we finally got together, and good to see you, Matt.
Thanks,
for having
Tom.
me. So I had a question, Matt. When you hear about ticketing and you combined your passion of music, I think, in a way, and understanding sports and everything. And where'd you come up with the idea for Ticketing Time Machine, and how'd you carve that path for yourself out there?
Yeah, it was actually, I'm a big collector. My wife says hoarder, but I collect everything, especially from events. And so once they started taking that away, you'd go up to the box office and ask for a printed ticket, and they said they're not doing that anymore. But the quick answer is I was at a Marlins game. There was a no hitter thrown, and it didn't even occur to me to ask for printed because they haven't been doing it. But they announced it over the loudspeaker. And when I got up to the box office afterwards, I said, "Can you put Edinson Volquez no hitter on there?" And they said that they couldn't. And I know that they can, they just don't want to. They use that word a lot. That's when I came up with the idea. I actually got this slabbed. This is the actual ticket that sort of started Ticket Time Machine, and it actually says Ensign Volquez no hitter up there. So that's where I came up with the idea. There's a lot of people who like to collect stuff, buy merch. Maybe they don't have $50 to buy a shirt or a hat, and just keeping that ticket is the memory that they have for the event. Speaking of tickets, it's very faded. This is the ticket from West Palm, the last Warp Tour show before they came back. This is the last touring Warp Tour show at West Palm. I think I've either found it on the floor or I was next to someone who had a ticket. So sometimes you get lucky like that, but a lot of times we don't. So we're trying to change that. And festivals have always been have been good at selling merchandise and posters and badges and VIP stuff. So it's that part of the industry has done much better than others. So speaking of Warp Tour, we're going to talk a ton about Warp Tour today, but the hot issue of the week is the Super Bowl performer Bad Bunny. Any thoughts, son? I know a lot of passionate conversation online.
I think it's fantastic. For me personally, I think it's fantastic. I mean, one of the greatest performers out there right now, live show. You can just imagine the guests that he'll bring out on stage. He'll push the envelope, and I'm excited about it. My students were yesterday. It was a big discussion. We discussed it on campus, and we've been discussing a lot about his residency and how he drove that economy down there, and was very passionate about bringing people to his community. And we talk about artists sometimes who have created their own festivals and brands, but I think Bad Bunny just took it to a whole new level.
Yeah, there was a lot of conversation, and it gets heated on there. It's saying, people don't know who he is. The Super Bowl is difficult to book. You as anyone know how hard it is to book people, and that no matter who you get, there's going to be a population of the people who are angry about it. I think he's a good choice. I personally would have liked to see some other artists because it feels like we've had a run of R&B and rap and. I'd love to get a punk, get Blink 182 and Green Day and
But
Weezer.
if you dig back through history, and it's a very like random thing, but I think Warp Tour has the most artists who graduated and eventually went on played the Super Bowl. If you ever want to go back through the Super Bowls, halftime shows, I think Warp Tour probably of any festival has the most artists that actually performed on a festival. Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you dig into that. So I mean, it was just something we did one day and for fun while we were watching the Super Bowl. But I think it's one of those things that I always say the best day and the worst day for a festival producer is the day you announce your lineup. It's you work so hard at these lineups, you really do. Every festival producer out there takes what they do very, very seriously, and they work super hard on that lineup. And you're going to have to put it out into the public space at some point, and you're going to 50%. It's going to be there's going to be those haters online, and there's going to be the people that love it. And you just have to kind of realize I learned around 2017 through some hard lessons that, hey, the message boards are there. But I learned from a book called Worldwide Whiners. It was called WWW and Worldwide Whiners, and how basically the internet gave those people a platform. Those people's platform used to be sitting at the end of a bar complaining to the bartender, and that was their voice. That was their echo chamber. And we've created that online. You can learn things from online, but don't react. Don't overreact. It's hard to educate online. You have to put it out there. Believe in what you're doing. For me, I do it over time because we announce our bands a little differently because it's all about artist development with our bands. So we want to give each band their shining moment. And I was talking to someone the other day, and I was going, remember about a year ago, about a little less than a year ago, when we started announcing some of those bands, And of course, the comments that go out online are, "Who the hell are those bands? I don't know." And now you go 9 to 10 months later, and those people are saying, "You know what? Wow, or they're going, those were the coolest bands. I got to see them at the show." Or their growth is our whole process is about growing artists from the bottom of the lineup to the top. And you go out there, but I was thinking it'd be a fun exercise. I just don't have any time to do it, to go back and take those first comments when we announced who was playing with us, and then after they played their show.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there a line in particular that might have gotten a lot of negative comments when it was released, and then the
I
show
mean,
sold out?
No, I think that, I mean, this year, well, we sold out this year without announcing any bands, except for our Orlando show. Uh, but the brand, it was nice to come back in a weird way. I didn't know what the brand meant to people, and sometimes you have to leave. Like, I felt like the last year has been kind of like living memorial. People actually say nice things about you. You go, it's like you take trashing it when you're kind of in the middle of it, and then you go away for a year, and then all of a sudden you come back and people are like, or 5 years I went away. I was still doing all my philanthropic work and background work for people, that people had sparked an emotion in people. And that's kind of what when I was approached by Insomniac, which has been a great partner for me and given me a lot of leeway and a team to work with me so I can focus on my school as well. You kind of had to sit there, and it was my students that inspired me to bring it back. Spending time with them and realizing that their search for community post-pandemic, that they were looking for these communities and places that they can gather. And they were one of them, that they were a big inspiration for me to come back and do this again.
When did you decide that you were going to bring it back?
Well, it was about, I'd say it was last summer, like right around July, maybe June, July. I mean, it was, there's a nice group of people, Maureen Volker, who worked with me on Warp Tour, Chris Barlow, people who knew me that had come over to Insomniac to maybe work with me on tours. Uh, they approached me, and I think I was in a good space, mentally, to come back and tackle this. And it was literally took us about 10 minutes of me coming over, spend some time with Pasquale, and having some good conversations, and about my early days. He didn't realize I was doing a lot production on a lot of the early raves out there in Southern California, where had an oil wheel and projecting onto a wall on sheets. So we kind of struck up, and he's very, very passionate about what he does. I'm very passionate about the community as well as the artist. But I always believe that it's important for me to develop it as the festival between the stages, you know.
Well, you came back with three shows, right? Three different locations. You've already announced for next year. Was that part of the plan? As you said, we're coming back. You said if it does well, we're going to keep this going.
And if I was having fun,
Yeah.
ultimately, Matt, I probably put up as many stages in parking lots and places as anyone in history through the years, and traveled. I don't necessarily need to, and there's a lot of great festivals out there. There's great festival producers, they all have their model. But I really thought it was, my keystone words in life are music, philanthropy, and education. They always have been. And Warp Tour was that big, almost classroom in a parking lot. And I felt like when I ended Warp Tour, there's a lot of smarter people in the music business than myself, but I felt like, where were some of these nonprofits that started on Warp Tour going to fall? The canned food drives we do. And then I see this whole new generation that hasn't been exposed to that while they're looking for community. And, it's a world out there now where people have to kind of, we're grabbing on it. So I said it wasn't going to be a nostalgia play. We had to pay homage to the past, of course, but we have to look forward to the future of community and artists. So that curation of the undercard of Warp Tour was really fun again. We have this little tour called Summer School that went out, that had bands like Honey Revenge and Magnolia Park. And I went out on the road and bounced around in a bandwagon for a week, and sat there and watched and saw kids sitting out front at these venues to see new bands. And I just started talking to them, and I don't know, it was a weird old creepy guy going talking to kids in front of a venue. But they started to, I felt that there was a spark out there that is looking for something. And that's what was really nice about Warped. It wasn't, when we get all our back end information now, 30 to 40% of the people were at their first festival or at their first concert that came to Warp this year. So that was what was inspiring to me. And as we felt that we were getting, it was exciting, I was having fun, the team was coming together, we said, well, hey, why not? Let's just see where this goes. If it doesn't work, it was a lot of fun doing it this time.
So you're committed to 3 more dates and some international
Yeah,
shows as
so
well.
so yeah, I Warped used to go around the world international, and I used to do Taste of Chaos around the world and some of the other projects I worked on. And there's some places I've always wanted to go, and some old partners that we worked at in some areas. And we didn't really want to expand in North America right now because there's a lot of you would start overlapping with a lot of festivals, and I want to be very respectful of people's radius clauses and what they're doing. But there's a couple international dates we'll be announcing very shortly. That people seem pretty excited about being part of, and some places that I've always wanted to do a show. And unfortunately, my background going all the way back to 96, 97 and taking the tour overseas was I never could afford to go travel the world. And now I always have to bring all my punk rock friends with me. And it seems like I'm redoing that now by going to these countries and doing a show there. And I've got to travel with 60 to 100 people to go do it.
So once the Warped Orlando is done, then they can expect some announcements on artists and locations and dates for next year.
Yeah, well, we it's nowadays with this new kind of model of doing your event and then rolling right into the next one. I'm always a little like, God, people haven't paid off their credit card bills. And oh my God, they've got the expenses. Because even though our ticket price was only $149.99 for a 2-day festival, I know that right now is a tough economic time for a lot of people. We went in and we went out behind, and I was very surprised. We're about 50% sold out in DC for next summer already, and we're over up 30,000 tickets for Long Beach already. So we must have done something halfway right. We got half the crowd to come back without knowing who the bands are next summer.
Well, I think one of the things that I always loved about Warped, and I think a lot of people do, is you certainly have your headliners, and there's enough of that for the people. I'm personally a headline guy. That's what's going to bring me to these things. But as you go down the lineup, there's a lot of great bands, and some bands that you've never heard of that are, like you said, are going to become some favorites and eventually end up, headlining festivals and maybe becoming really huge. So that's one of the things that I think that the fans love about it.
Yeah, well, we can't go financially toe to toe with a lot of the festivals. We can't because of our ticket price and our economic model. However, we have to be the people that work the hardest for all the bands that are on the bill. We did this rollout last year, and I had to convince it's different. Warped has always been different. It's never been, we write the schedule differently. I said, look, we're going to give each band their moment. So we were in a rush because we decided to do this. We had to start announcing, we had to get everything in line. And these band videos that we had the artists create to announce their time that they're playing Warped Tour. That's a lot when we had, I think, 141 different videos that these bands created, and we want to give them their moment. So everyone from, a Honey Revenge, and I can use them because I'm really back. You love that band, or a Beauty School Dropouts. We got the data that their normal videos were getting between 80 and 100,000 views, and that Warped announced video got between 300 and a half a million.
Yeah, people want to see who they're about to see.
Yeah,
They want to listen.
and so in going forward, it's been exciting for me connecting with some people on artist development tools that are coming out. I'm not running away from things with AI. I know that's a big discussion in the business. We have to find reasons to use AI for the positive.
Yeah.
We're excited to be working. We're about ready to roll out a plan with FYI, which is Will I Am's group. It's all going to be about artist development because I got to take those bands that maybe we're paying, let's just say $20,000 to, and by the summertime, I need them to be worth that 50,000 level or something, that investing in them. And then, of course, getting those bigger acts and giving them a platform. I said it felt right. I felt it was right that it was like Warp Tour felt like Warp Tour. We let the band sell their own merchandise. It was a 10% rate honor system. We had 25 nonprofits there. We had the museum there. We had Gritty and Pink. We had all those organizations. We blended in the brands that worked with us very well into the process. And I tell people it felt like you were going to Warped Tour. You dropped your canned foods off at the door and you got into the festival site. And the only difference was there was bigger stages and there was video and lights for a few bands. But that, yeah, sense of discovery was there.
How many bands came to you and said, I want to be a part of this tour, as opposed to the ones that you got to go ask? And then how does that compare to the future, to past years?
We had a couple thousand submissions, once the word got out. We took the time to right away. I mean, it was literally the deal was done and we were lining up calls. We wish we could have probably gone in person, but we did large Zoom calls with every agency that was interested or every agent that might have questions, and kind of very transparent with our rollout plan and what we were doing. And it was fun. And for me, I was just talking on the drive up here today with Elise Rogers from Dance Hall Crashers. And for me, it was a goal of for 25 years to get them to reunite and play a show. And Warped Tour was a kickoff again for them to reintroduce to the audience. And she just was telling me how great Riot Fest was and some of their individual shows. So, it was really fun. It's really, as long as I can, and I keep saying that word fun, it's been a stressful year. I live in Altadena, California, where we lost 7,000 homes. I lost my father in June, who was a very big supporter of Warped Tour. But it's been a distraction and helpful to have Warped Tour to focus on as well as teaching. And now, moving forward, it's re-energized. Sometimes you have to stop doing something because you get so caught up in it. And
Yeah.
it's allowing me to focus on helping my community right now, and moving forward.
Yeah, well, sorry to hear about your dad. I lost mine about 20 years ago, and I know how tough it is. But he obviously saw a lot of the success that you've had. So that's great that he was able to support it and be around it. You mentioned a ton of the stuff you do. We're going to need way more than an hour to get through all of it. But let's talk a little bit about the fires that hit home for you, and now you're trying to give back to the community. You have something cool coming up.
Yeah, we were, it was one of those things that, Altadena was a very unique community. It was a very diverse community. There's a lot of artists had found Altadena was affordable when we moved there. It was a place accessible to Los Angeles, but affordable. And you just started going down the streets. And I see George Schwint is in this chat, and he was a resident. He was a drummer for Flogging Molly's, where I met him. And as the pandemic, when we got to chance in a weird way slow down from our lives, and you would just take walks, you started running into people on the street just walking their dogs or something, and realizing what a creative artistic community it was. So recently, a great guitar player, Eric Krasno, is a friend of mine now in the community, and he wanted to do something for the community. And I said, well, sometimes you have to let this breathe because there's so much instantaneous. Everyone was trying to help. I was trying to got truckloads of water in. We were able to help Altadena girls with a hoodie that we sold through our Warped Tour website. We donated the money to them. But we're actually putting together a very cool show right now. The members of Dawes are very involved in it. And everyone's kind of pulling together, and we'll be doing a show on the eve of the fire. The fire broke out. It was interesting. My wife goes, that fire broke out like at 6:30, and you just talked about opening doors at 6:30, exactly 1 year from the fire, to show that we're still here. How that to bring awareness that Altadena still is hurting. We will raise some money, and we're very transparent of where that money is going. And we got a lot of really cool musicians, artists. People like Art from Everclear was a neighbor. Those are Motley people, and we're just formulating a show that'll be held at the Pasadena Civic. And we're hoping we're getting support from some of those brands that we work with, and we'll carve out a large chunk of tickets for people who live in the community to gather on that eve. And we're still here. We're moving forward as a community and keep working.
Yeah, it's hopefully raises a good amount of money and some awareness. You get wary of these events that come right after something happens, and then they forget about the cause. Just they had that one big event. So it sounds like what you're doing is going to be more longevity and helpful for the community.
It's going to take a long time, and I think that's as the community is rebuilding and the people that have the tools to do it, we have to support the people that are still. There's a lot of people still trying. That insurance. We had about 7,000 homes lost, I think, roughly up there, and I'd say maybe 150 are being built that I've seen. I ride my bike around, but for me, I have to look in our industry. You have to keep that positive attitude, and I said I'm seeing less trucks leave with debris and more cement trucks coming up the hill and lumber trucks. That means someone's building a foundation. And if the people whose homes survive, we suffered a lot of damage, but hopefully those people that can and are fortunate enough can become the foundation that helps rebuild our community.
I want to talk about another cause that we're both passionate about: mental health. I champion for mental health with an organization called Same Here, with the hashtag 5 and 5, that everybody has some sort of mental health challenge that we're dealing with. Back in the day, you did an event with Talinda, right, regarding mental health. Chester Bennington's wife, and mental health. I mean, everyone knows someone who's dealing with it, and we just had a couple of big names in the news. But in the music business, it seems like it's really it's everywhere. But there's a lot in the music. So talk about what you've tried to do in the music business to help.
Well, it's becoming a teacher for me. I think I've been trying to change or work in the business for a long time. And sometimes I think the youth are getting it. I think the pandemic slowed us down. The conversation was there. I was in the middle of it. When you were on the road with 800 to 1,000 people on Warped Tour every summer, I saw people at every facet of their lives, and I started developing those tools not only for mental health, but to identify like addiction situations. Touring with Brad Knoll in Sublime in 1995, who was battling his addiction. I'll never forget having conversations with him about raising our children in the music industry. He was excited to be a father. I was having my daughter, Sierra, who's now 30, and she's in the business, talking about raising him. Unfortunately, he wasn't allowed to because maybe I didn't have the tools, or maybe we didn't have the tools available. And that's what got me involved in Music Cares originally, was donating that 25 cents a ticket to Music Cares to help people and grow those tools. And then moving on, you would see that in the parking lot. And I went through my own issues. We put on a proud face. You have to, especially when you're the captain driving the ship. I was going through some real tough times, but I couldn't show it. I had to do what I needed to do. And sometimes that was probably drinking a little too much. You soothe that pain. But then I started developing those tools. And then as I got through that, I was like, your legacy will be left by the ones you leave better. And so I surrounded myself with people that were smarter than me. We talk about the smartest people in the room. You can't develop all these things yourself. I was learning in real time and by experiences. So I stress to my students, and I tell them last week I had a rough day on a Tuesday. And we got through about 3/4 of class. And I go, I'm just really, because I had gotten some, I go, I'm really, really having a rough, struggling time. And if you need something, come over to my office and talk to me. But I'm not going to be great for the next 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And to
I
show
think
them,
it's better. It's better to be transparent and honest about that than otherwise. It's good
right,
for you. It's better for the students, and they need to hear that, because then when they're having a tough time, I think it'll help them talk about it. And the worst thing you can do is not talk about it with anyone and just have it go through until you can't. It's something you can't even control.
until you can't function. And then you go back and there's tools. And if you can pass those on, it's great you're doing that work in that world. I'm so glad that uh, we understand, and it's understanding that we have our artists are the pinnacle of but there's a big pyramid below them that needs to be, I guess, functioning at all. It's like you can't have one bad spark plug or it starts
Right.
to misfunction. That's going to lead to other problems. And people being willing to say that and not being judged for that. I think that was what we were all afraid of, that it was the show must go on, or that term. And the show sometimes needs to slow down.
What got you into teaching? You were talking about your students. You do some adjunct professor at in California, UC
Well,
Santa Barbara.
No, I'm a full-time professor. I'm
Oh,
actually,
you are.
yeah, I'm a full-time. I thought they were recruiting me to be an adjunct professor, but I actually teach 5 classes,
Oh,
separate
wow.
classes a week. So when I was approached to come and do that, it was probably, you got to look at moments of time in life. I ended Warp Tour. I was thinking about ending Warp Tour for about 3 or 4 years. I felt I'd done everything with that project. I was doing some other projects, and then I was kind of like, transit like, okay, I know there's stuff out there, like there I'm gonna be fine. We had the company, and all of a sudden I got approached one day about, hey, would you like to come teach at USC? I'm like, I'm interested in it. Of course you're going to go talk to people. You don't want to close a door. You're going to go talk to people. And they explained that it was actually a full-time position.
Wow.
And I asked my wife was like, how can he work another full-time job? He's still got a whole summer of Warp Tour, and he's got 2 other tours, things going on. And they said, well, full time is, 20 hours, or 10 hours, 11 hours a week of teaching, and you probably put about the same amount in for prep. And she goes, "Oh my God, that's full time?" Like I thought 60 or 80 hours was every full-time job in the world. And I was able to, and honestly, it goes back to my early education. I did get a bachelor's degree that pretty much allowed me to be, I guess, the lifeguard at the pool. I didn't really get, I was going to college more as a socialization, and that's where I started doing shows. But it always felt that it was going to be a backup plan that I would have a degree if I needed to have a resume. And I thought I was just going to come in and start teaching. They go, well, we need you to give us a resume. And I literally was able to go back and pull out that degree I got from Cal Poly Pomona and put it on a resume. And it was my safety net. And I was able to start teaching. You got to think about it. I started teaching full time in 2018. 2019, I round Warp Tour down. I was full bore into teaching. And then when that pandemic hit, when I was getting calls on March 13th from everyone from the road. People were bouncing things off of me. What's going on? I had just had a pretty major surgery. So I was in the hospital watching the doctors starting to prepare for a pandemic. And I know that, I was contacted by some of the press, and I was like, this is going to be a lot more than 2 or 3 weeks. They were talking about a shutdown, and our industry was like, oh, we'll be back up and running in 2 or 3 weeks. And I know I'm always good for a soundbite. And I said, no, it's not. It's going to be a lot longer to shut down. And I know that the Wimmer crew, the Golden Voice crew was like, F Lyman, he has no idea what he's talking about. But I'd laid in a hospital watching as we do the environment, because that's what we do, and watching the hospitals changing their protocols right in real time. And I knew that, and some of those doctors had cut into me 4 or 5 times since all the damage I did to my body from being on the road. And they were opened up to me that they were really worried about this. And then later on, some of those same people said, my God, you were right, and I told them I was sitting in a hospital watching the protocols change. But it allowed me to transition to a teacher in Zoom. I wasn't even that good. I wasn't a normal professor. So we entertain people. Education is about 70% entertainment. If you can people entertained in those classrooms, they're going to remember the 30% you really want them to learn. And I get that back a lot of times. Oh my God, that came back to me when I was in the middle of a production, or I was working on a contract, and that's so it was easy to switch to 3 screens on a Zoom and pivot into a video and pivot into a guest here and there. So that got me through, and it was a transition, because when you get identified for a singular thing, I've done a lot more than Warp Tour, but
Right.
I was known as the warped guy,
How
and
many other students know that going in?
well, going in, it was interesting how um, they did, but they didn't grab onto it. But more and more, they started learning about it. It was really fun when I was putting Warp Tour together last year. My classes were sworn like to secrecy, and they were helping to build a festival in real time, or see how I was doing it. I was sharing information that a college student might not get, but they saw how I was negotiating deals, how we were staffing up, how we were mapping, how many changes of a CAD drawing you will have going into it. Uh, Security, just how we, the levels of security we now have.
Yeah.
So you have, if you're going to teach, you need to be teaching in real time,
Yeah.
because our industry changes so much. I was thinking about, I should have been teaching calculus. Calculus doesn't change.
Yeah.
You
It
teach
doesn't
every
change.
year, and no wonder those guys play 3 rounds of golf a week,
But
because
it's
they'll
more fun to talk about something that's not, you can talk about history and music, But you can talk about what's going on in currently. I like that you can do both.
Yeah. Oh, nice to see you, David, in the chat. I see
Yeah,
David
we got some students of his
yeah, we
in
got
the
a few
chat and some
students.
teachers.
Great to see everyone in there. Hopefully you're doing well, and thank you for being on here.
What do you like teaching the most about? Not what do you like most about teaching? What do you like teaching the most about? What do you like talking about most to your students?
Pretty much preparing them for just real life. That we need to take what we do serious, but don't take yourself too serious. That we're very fortunate to do what we have to do. Kindness is not a weakness. Sometimes in our business, people will take kindness as weakness. Be kind. I mean, kindness will come back to you later on in life. People remember kindness, but they really remember if you're an asshole.
Yeah.
And then when you need a hand up later on in life, and sadly, those people, sometimes assholes are not forgiven and they struggle now. And I know what people were like. And then they talk to me now and they're 50s and 60s like me, and they're kind of lost in the business, right? They can't figure, there's no hole for them. But show kindness. Like I tell my students, like, be kind to you guys, because maybe you'll let me be the Walmart greeter of the music business, because you're being nice. Just be nice, and I say it will come back at the strangest times. My life comes back constantly. You don't ask for favors in this business. Everyone asks for favors or expects a favor. Do this, do that. Just do it because you want to do it. Just answer that random email from a student or a young industry professional. Take the time and treat them like you would treat a meeting with the CEO of a company. We're all just people and lucky to get to do what we do.
Yeah, you've done a ton. We talk about Warped. You also had yesterday was International Podcast Day. You did My Warp Life for a couple
Yeah,
years, a year or so.
yeah, my Worth Life. You do a podcast that was filling up some time during the pandemic. Maybe we're thinking about maybe resurrecting some of those again and doing more of that with the artists now when they're coming through town that will be playing Warp Tour in 2026. I may not be able to stay for your set because bedtime's around 9:30, 10, but I can always drop by at 5 or 6 and chat about where you are in your career.
The Yeah, I love doing podcasts. I've stopped a little bit on the Wolff Den. I have over 300 episodes. You were on it. I remember you had a tooth issue that day. You had to go to the dentist, but it's always a great chat to talk to people in things that they might not necessarily be talking about elsewhere. Like you might know a lot of things about these famous people, and you want to get beyond the surface of
Well,
that. And
if I can
you know,
can I give some advice to people in our industry?
sure, that's what we're
When you
here
hit a
for.
certain age, once you hit a certain age, it's not the rock stars you know. You should have made more friends with doctors. People
Yeah.
go back. People go, what would you? They always ask, like, what would you have done different? 40 years ago. I go, one, I would have wore earplugs. Having tinnitus as bad as I have it has kind of, in some ways, made it really hard to go to live shows. I did go see Hosier and Leon Bridges this week at a fabulous festival called Ohana, but really, it's about that kind of what I can do. So wear your earplugs and meet a bunch of doctors. Spend time meeting doctors at 25 because you sure need them when you're 65. And I don't know how many rock stars you need at your house when you're 65.
Probably not. Did you stick around to see Eddie?
He played on Friday. I ran into him backstage, said hello. I was a stage manager of Lollapalooza in 1992, and toured with him when he was just breaking out. And it'll never go away. That energy was when someone can just walk on stage and 20,000 people just lose their shit.
You think they'll find a drummer and soon and get back on tour?
Um, I don't know. I don't work. It was nice to see their crew, so many of their crew. Still work with them from that period of time. I mean, it's nice when you see a band that grew and their crew grew with them. And there, I ran into so many old friends at Ohana. Um, that and then ran into so many of people, and people go, "What's your legacy?" And I go, "I walk backstage at any festival, and so many of those people got their breaks in those parking lots." And then I turn a corner and there's a bunch of my students working at Ohana, and they're getting mentored by the people that I mentored at one point in their life.
It's like
And
the coaching tree in sports.
yeah,
And it just keeps flowing and flowing.
It is, and you know, it's been really cool, and you know, I see Red Rocks is in the house with Dan, and the best venue in the world, and people don't realize we did Warped Tour there in 1996. Believe it or not, we hauled a skateboard ramp up to that top parking lot because I always sometimes I had to go do a show because I didn't think punkers got a chance to be there. And Red Rocks was one of those venues. The Gorge was one of those venues. We had to get our fans out there to get a chance to see what those beautiful venues were like.
I was going to do some rapid fire at the end. What's a venue you've never been to that you would love to see a show? I can't imagine there's many, but is there something out there?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. There's that's a hard one. I can't do a rapid fire question on that because I was always one of those people that was like, okay, I'll figure out how to bring one of my shows in there, even though maybe they didn't even know they needed that show. So, for me, it was,
Tom,
yeah.
yeah, Tom wants to know, how do you find the venues
Well, we
for
had so many.
Warped Tour?
We had early Warp Tours. We had so many great promoting partners. I saw Gene Hollister here from Rose Presents up in Minneapolis. We depended on our local promoting partners to find those venues, and they would find places. And I see just Gene was in here. Some couple years they were underwater down in Harriet Island, but we used the target. But we could adapt. That was a cool thing about Warp Tour. It was a moldable festival. We pretty much traveled with all our stages, our generators, and here's the square footage, figure it out. And they gave us some of that infrastructure we needed of stage hands. They helped market the shows. So we were very malleable. My festivals are malleable, and even with Insomniac now, when we came back, we were like, let's come in and use the infrastructure of one of their existing festivals. So in DC, there was Project Glow, then there was the World Pride Festival, then Warped. In Orlando, they have EDC the week before. We're coming in behind. Now, we thought it was going to be this great money saving things, but both festivals are extremely different in the way that they present themselves. So we'll probably burn up all the savings on labor to make that happen. And then in Long Beach, I think Long Beach was just fantastic because that's where my roots started. Long Beach, there was a club called Fender's Ballroom, and it was like this gnarly, great punk rock place. But I cut my teeth with a company called Golden Voice there, and to be able to be invited back by the mayor to do a punk rock show in Long Beach was pretty cool to go full circle. And we did an event where they named Sublime Boulevard, and the band, a bunch of us were all there. And the mayor said, "This is going to be the world's biggest punk rock festival in North America." And we all look at each other and go, "Remember when politicians ran on driving punk rock out of Long Beach? How the world changes." So never, and then of course the weather down there was beautiful.
We have a question. Carlene in the chat wants to know, how much involvement does Vans have in the planning of Warped Tour? You hear a lot of sponsors and presented by that are just in name, but they were pretty involved back in the day, right?
Steve Van Doren and me go way back. We go back prior to Warp Tour. And when Vans got involved in 1996 with me, Steve has been my point person ever since. Steve is the son of, and he's the best marketing person there is. And he was me and him grew together and worked together, and we work together now. Now they came in, they organize the skaters, they do their stuff, and we do some marketing together. And yeah, Gene, we had a lot of amazing venues. All this I see Gene mentioning in the chat, but I loved Canterbury, and yeah, that was a great spot. And but it's been a great relationship. I think probably it'll go down as one of the longest partnerships in music history. Now working, they came back in this year and they're very involved to be able to work 25 years together.
It feels like you guys were sort of the beginning of activations at these events, not just bringing music to a festival, but having something where people could just walk around and they can get involved with certain brands, with certain activities. Because music's one of those things you can just be outside and listening. I don't have to be standing in front of the stage watching it.
Right. Well, I think when we integrating brands into Warped Tour, I grew up in an era of California was like skating and action sports. We were doing events with action sports, boarding for breast cancer, a lot of filling. I did Vision Skate Escape with the Chili Peppers on top of the ramp, a lot of events that I was involved in. But I started looking in about 1995. I was pretty much broke after the first Warped Tour, and I started thinking. I was learning more and more about brands, and I was thinking we support these brands, but I grow up in a world of music that's kind of fuck corporate America. All the skateboards had it, and it was fuck corporate America. And I'm like, wait a second. There's a way that we're supporting them whether we want to or not. We're wearing their clothes, we're drinking their products. Maybe I can. And it was as simple as early on, and trust me, the Walter Schoenfeld, the CEO of Vans, he goes, God, I wish you wouldn't say that, but it was true. Ultimately, the original idea was I have to go get some of this money to help support the music I love so much and take it to more places to have fun with my friends. That was as simple as I looked at it. That if I could
I
get
think it
something.
happens that way now. People they need money, and maybe they take a partnership with someone they might not align so well
Well,
with.
it's much more complicated now. The brands are very smart. The music industry was looked at for a while there that we took the money but didn't fulfill the agreements. There was a lot of brands that would come to me and say, I did this deal with someone, and they find every reason not to fulfill the deal. I stress that build those relationships over time. We had many, many multiple year deals. Brands are smart. I tell my students, you can go work for these brands. They all have music departments now, the ones that are lifestyle oriented. They're going to have people that understand and they want to integrate into the projects you work on. So I think it goes back to the original way when I worked on with some early brands. I was working on Lollapalooza. Those brands had to travel on their own. They were separate. They never were part of the whole culture. We created bus spots for those brands. Those backstage barbecues that I would have in most cities were how to bring everyone together, from the artists to the production people to those brands, and they created those relationships in an organic and natural way. Um, they just, oh, what do you do? Oh, I work for, you know, I work for Monster. Oh, wow. That's cool. Man, do you like to play cards or dice? Come join the poker tournament, poker game. Or later on, two people that were maybe channeling, maybe former and needed to stay sober on the road. Let's go to a meeting. And, we started traveling with our own counselor on the road, Mike Farr, who came from our world. So if an artist needed that little bit of help on the road, they could go to, it was interesting. We'd have a meeting going on, and there'd be a barbecue sponsored by PBR around the corner. Um, and then, the only weird thing I ever thought was a bunch of kids ran by me one night and they were carrying brooms. They're all running, and I go, "What is that?" And they go, "Oh, we're playing Quidditch." And I go, "Oh my God, punk rock is all over. We are done." They were playing Quidditch. I see Tom asking the curator of the lineups. I worked on the lineups. I am involved very heavily. Started out with walking around, and then when iPods were kind of created, I'd put music into an iPod and walk around with some earbuds in and think how that would sound in a parking lot, how those musics on shuffle. iPods on shuffle were my favorite thing. It starts with a whiteboard of all the bands I think and the genres of music. It's funny because I have an amazing booking partner here at Insomniac now. Her name's Amanda Phelan, and she's funny because I'm like, you got to print it out. You got to print me out those stage grids because I have to visualize it now. I have to look at, okay, God, if I was walking around a festival house and everyone works on Google Docs now. Everyone works and I'm like, no, I just need big shit. And she laughs that I'm printing out your stuff and taping it all together so you can look at it. Because then again, I'll go in and make a playlist and sit there and listen to it and go, will it sound different enough and unique enough so a person's ears are going to change throughout the day and maybe be willing to expose them. It was great. A lot of people would not think we had Treaty Oak Revival on Warped Tour in Long Beach. Um, and they had a big crowd because it sounded different enough that people went to explore it. So I look for
What,
bands that may not fit.
have you seen the movie Highest to Lowest, the new Spike Lee movie with Denzel? It's a really
No.
great movie about a music exec who's a legend in the game, and some of the stuff, the talk was that it's passed him by, and you should watch it. It's a great movie. It's Spike Lee
I
movie,
will.
Highest to Lowest, all about just you hear you hear a song and a voice, and you just know, this is something that we need to bring to the people. I want to talk about gardening because I know that's a big hobby of yours. How did you get into gardening?
Well, I've always loved to grow things, and I guess it's kind of what I do. So watching it start from scratch, and really was during that pandemic time, I actually had that time to, because I'd grow a great garden and then I had to leave on the road for 2 months, and you'd come back and it would be out of control, or the sprinkler broke or the drip system broke and everything be dead. But the pandemic, I had lots and lots of time to grow. And it's interesting. I've kind of had to put it back in the back burner the last couple of years, and still grow. We're getting older. Like, we like to travel in our Sprinter van. I had to get rid of the tour bus, and the last year I stepped off at a Flying J, and I saw one of those Winnebago Mercedes Sprinters, and I go, I've never had a new car. I'm going to treat myself to something post Warp Tour, because I know I'm going to want to be on the road. And I had one of those Sprinter vans, so I spent a lot of time going back to those places that we passed through. So if you had a day off in Vancouver, and we were always passing through the Canadian Rockies on the way to Calgary. And, luckily I wasn't locked out of my home at one point, could have been, that my wife goes with me, and we travel, and I go and explore all those places that we just passed through. But then again, I could call Michael Belkin and those guys and say, hey, I'm going to be passing through Cleveland. I want to come see you guys. Oh, we have a show at Blossom. And they actually set it up so I could camp in the parking lot. So I got to go see Miranda Lambert and Little Big Town, who I worked with on our country tour. And I was the only person allowed to ever camp in the parking lot at Blossom. They let all the park rangers know, don't hassle him, he's going to leave at 7 a.m. So I still love to be out, traveling, seeing things, but now I try to find everything in between those venues and parking lots we played.
Yeah, I got to find something it's great to have a hobby. Something like that is, you have to have something that you love to do outside, and you're lucky enough that you love to do what you're doing. But it's, when you say having fun, there's a ton of stress involved, and it's hard. It's really hard work. So to be able
Well,
to do something outside of that and also have fun is important.
I think it's, you take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself that seriously. I think
Yeah.
if we can we're not brain surgeons, we're not curing cancer. We can help, we can contribute to that. But you know what? We're creating entertainment, and we're creating joy. And I always tell people, if you don't get goosebumps doing it, get out. And around 2018, there was a moment in time where I wasn't feeling the goosebumps.
Yeah,
Um,
you just needed that break to get
but
back
now,
to it.
just getting a chance to talk to you for almost an hour, it's about done. I
Yeah.
got goosebumps just thinking about, like, that. I'm at the front gate watching those kids run in the door again, and just knowing that they're going to walk out semi-changed from being involved in something you created. It gives you the goosebumps.
What do you keep stuff? Are you a keepsake guy? What's one, if you had to leave your house and you can only take one thing, what do you? I mean, that's got to be tough for you. I imagine you got to.
We did have to leave our house and only take one thing. We were
What'd you take?
we were running from a fire. My wife's funny because we have the Punk Rock Museum up in Vegas. I'll be up there next month. If anyone's going to be in Vegas for that When We Were Young festival, I do these tours. I love walking around and talking about things. I gave them a bunch of I give most of my stuff away now. I guess there's one thing. I have the original Ramones uh, poster flyer. Their artwork. Arturo Vega, who was the creator of that, was a dear friend. He gave me that before he passed away. I guess if I could find it, I'd go in and grab it. But we've evacuated from fires, not only in this house, in past homes we lived in. And all you want to make sure is you grab, I guess, some family photos, and you grab a bottle of champagne and a clean T-shirt.
There
You
you
don't
go.
know if you're going to have anything. And coming as close as we have, you realize it's just things.
Can you tell us your first concert you ever went to, the favorite concert you ever went to, and someone you never got to see that you would love to?
Well, um, my first concert was actually Van Morrison at the Hollywood Palladium. I
Okay.
would say that was my first concert.
Mine was Culture Club. I wish my second concert was Billy Joel on the Bridge Tour, but Culture Club is great.
Yeah, do you remember that? And to think that I went back about 10, 15, maybe years later, and was running shows at the Hollywood Palladium was kind of crazy. Um, a band that I never got to see. I was, lucky enough to see almost most people, but the band I wanted to play Warped Tour so bad was the Ramones. Um, I would go to them each year at the beginning and say, I'll give you a whole stage for all their side projects, the Marky Ramones, the DD, whatever they were doing. And I would do an all Ramones all the time stage. Just give me 30 minutes of the Ramones at the end. Joe Strummer was supposed to be on Warp Tour. We had agreed for him to play Warp Tour that Thanksgiving, and he passed away in that December. I wish he could have played Warp Tour and been around. You know, Yeah, so I actually go along and I've kind of got to see like right now, totally getting to see Leon Bridges and Hosier back to back. Nice work, Rich Best out there at a wonderful festival, and yeah, just keep going. Just like I tell my students, if you love what you do, the only thing you're going to do is run out of time.
Yeah, time. We're running out of time here. Did you have my favorite concert I've ever been to? I've been to thousands of really good shows. It sticks out. It was Green Day down here in Miami. It's just the atmosphere, the song, the crowd. It was electric. That stands out to me as number one by far.
I guess number one was maybe I keep going back to this moment in time where I was doing production on shows and with Golden Voice, and there was a band called Stiff Little Fingers, and Sonic Youth was also playing, and you're gonna have your favorite bands and not band, and I kind of decided like, yeah, Sonic Youth is a great sound. They've got a lot of fans, but not maybe my taste exactly. I'm gonna go work this band called Stiff Little Fingers that I didn't really know much about, and we did the Variety Arts Center in downtown LA. They were doing 3 shows, over a weekend, and I gotta tell you, it stuck with me. It's just one of the coolest crowds, the greatest moments. Just Stiff Little Fingers was such a great band, and, just the memory of them thinking that they could leave a, Jeeps. They had rented Jeeps because they thought it'd be fun for English guys to drive Jeeps around, and they left them. They met some girls or something and took off, and they left 2 Jeeps in the parking lot overnight in downtown LA, which was not what it is now, and coming back and seeing the 2 Jeeps up on blocks with all the tires stolen. I thought that was for
I,
some either the but it all stuck with me. The music, the moment that captured that thing, super fun. And Gary Clark is awesome. Got to see him at ACL. Was
yeah,
fantastic.
Bush too. I have a friend who has an independent festival in Pittsburgh, and he says right now the music festival world is struggling. Is that true? I know you guys aren't, but I'm saying as a whole, is that true?
I think I think we just keep readjusting. We keep adjusting. Is it going to be I think price point is a huge thing going forward. I think we're seeing it right now with shows what going on right now and the blowback that an artist can get. I think, I talk about brands in crisis and sadly a band I really, really love, My Chemical Romance is in a bit of a crisis space. We have to be very price sensitive. Right now, I watch people, credit card debt is its all-time highest. People are frustrated in the world for whatever reason. They're just frustrated. And to watch what's going on this week with them, people hold them dear in their hearts. They toured with me, they worked with me, and people will take it out on the people closest to them sometimes when they're frustrated on a bigger level. And it's hard to see what's kind of going on. And I think we have to all be very careful with our industry right now. We have to be smart packaging, smart pricing, and give people a reason to come out. They're going to need a solid reason because they're spent going into debt to go out.
Are you planning on having Warped 5 years from now?
I don't know, take it year by year. For me, it's I'm a short, it's as long look at, there was a good response. You know, people could turn on you tomorrow.
Well, let's hope they don't. I think you've got enough cred in the world and what you're doing, even outside of Warped. But Warped, I'm excited. I'll be in Orlando next month, so hope to see you there.
Yeah, well, I look forward to hanging out with you, Matt. It's nice. People were like, "Wow, you were relaxed at this Warp Tour." Well, I have such a great team of people over here that Insomniac gave me that I'm really intense. I still am there for the build. I look at how the show's laid out. I want to see the pathways where people are going to go. But once that show starts, they know how to run a show. And someone said, "I actually saw you with a cornhole bag in your hand backstage for a minute."
Maybe beer pong with water.
Kevin, have you ever crowd surfed at a work tour show?
Um, Once. I have to once, but I
On
don't,
video?
I've had to deal with too many people who've been injured crowd surfing. I think that last show in West Palm Beach I did.
Yeah, I would love to see video footage of that. That
Yeah.
would be wonderful. Guys, I got to step in here and cut it off out of respect for everyone's time. But first, let me just simply say thank you, Kevin, for coming on the program. As I said at the top of the show, I've been stalking you as a speaker for years. You are remarkable. Everything you've done, it kind of speaks for itself. But the thing that I've learned more about you today than maybe ever before is how much you pay it forward. That's a remarkable attribute about you, and it's no wonder that you have legions of fans, both from the students that you've taught to the executives that you've grown in this business. It all comes back to, it sounds like you love to pay it forward. So thank you.
I'm very lucky to get to do what I did, and thank you for having me, Tom. And Matt, I'll see you in a month or so.
Sounds good.
Matt,
Thanks,
good
Tom.
luck. Matt, good luck to you as you continue growing Ticket Time Machine. I was a fan from the moment I heard about it. As you know, I'm a pretty big ticket collector myself, and so I'm excited to see what you're doing, and hopefully you continue. To the audience, I promised you'd leave smarter and more inspired today than you arrived. We nailed that, didn't we? And I look forward to seeing you guys back here next Thursday at our regular time. Meanwhile, be nice to each other. We need that more than ever in this world. Take care, folks.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.